Welcome to Reflections. Welcome to Andrew White. Today's going to be difficult, Andrew. We're going to attempt to stay within the bounds that won't get us into trouble, let's say. We're going to talk about anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism, and anti-Islamism. And with all the free speech problems in England at the moment, people being arrested, flying back from the States, which quite honestly was truly horrific, we've got to be careful what we say. So with that caveat, let's talk about what's the difference between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism?
Well, I think that they are different because one is overtly anti the very nature of Judaism. Judaism, aggression against it, which has existed in the Bible for 3,000 years. Zionism is not just Judaism, it is overtly being anti the nation of Israel. And that's been very prominent at the moment because of all the various terrible international dimensions to the recent attacks. There was the big 7/11 attacks 2 years ago, and the attacks against Gaza didn't just destroy Hamas, which we don't know if it has done, but it had a terrible effect on the civilians of Gaza. I've spent many, many years living and working with people in Gaza, and they are an incredibly lovely people, as are the Palestinians. And people often say to me, well, whose side do you take? Do you take the Palestinian side or the Israeli side? And the fact is that as people go, I take both sides. I love the Palestinians and I love the Israelis. What I don't like is when either of those groups are involved in extremist activity. And we see extremism on both sides. We see the extremists to the most radical extent on Hamas, who are shouting up their cry, from the river to the sea, Palestine is ours. So they're basically saying from Jordan to the Mediterranean, that tiny strip of land called Israel is really Palestine. And then you've got extremist Israelis saying all the land is theirs and wanting to establish further settlements. And the Palestinian people have suffered terribly at the hands of this. I have so many Palestinians, especially children, having established a school in Beit Jala near Bethlehem. All of that school has literally grown up with me from when they were kindergarten to now, when some of them are senior managerial medical school, and we love and pray for them both. And so what we need to do is we need to fight the discrimination of the people of the land of the Holy One. And there is discrimination against all people of that land, which most call holy. I don't like to call it holy. For me, it's holy because of the Holy One of Israel. And I call it the land of the Holy One. But we can see anti-Semitism growing in different parts of the world, in American universities, in English towns and cities, often reacting to issues which are totally unrelated, like the immigrant crisis that we have. Totally different situations of no relationship whatsoever. And yet we can also see that the Israeli and Jewish community is the most intelligent community in the world. Israel has got more Nobel Prize winners than any other nation, and yet it's one of the smallest nations.
Is this jealousy within the nationhood of mankind? And the reason I'm using the word jealousy or envy,
There is inept envy and jealousy.
but I tell you what, the other significant thing is in all this, Andrew, is those that are anti-Semitic are from the left. Why is that?
Well, it's interesting. They can be from the left or from the extreme right. New people who are beginning to even now hold to Nazi kind of propaganda, and they're from the extreme right. So they can come from both extremities. They meet in the middle.
Well, I can understand that, but when you have got a socialist government in whatever country, they seem always to side with the Palestinians, and a conservative government, although not in this case in GB, they will side with the Israelis.
Yeah, so we find this continual extremist behavior. And we have seen an increasing move to the right and to the left, even in mainstream Europe.
What about anti-Islamism?
Anti-Islamism is something else which has recently grown. And when we see it in response to anti-Semitism, we see that it has a very similar component. People are anti-Islam because they see Islam as being very anti the West, the Jewish culture. You and I were recently reading a document which was looking at some of the Islamic proclamations. And these proclamations are very extreme, both calling for Hamas to come in power and declare a wide jihad across a lot of the Western world. And this is what we're fighting with.
I'm thinking also of the Arab League that comes together and issues diktats every now and again. It was a couple of years ago that they condemned everything that was happening in Gaza. And then
And the
suddenly,
Arab League is supposed to be moderate enough to be our friend.
But they're not,
When I
Andrew.
say I mean the people who were kind of pro the Abraham Accords
Yeah.
and wanted to find peace amongst everybody.
But on the ground, take two countries that are often involved in trying to get peace talks together, Qatar and Egypt. And you think, oh, well, there's a bit of sense there that we can gather together. But you look at those two countries and
And the statements they're coming out with are horrendous.
they are, and more than that, Andrew, there's people from Hamas, leaders from Hamas, that are seeking refuge in these countries, and they do nothing about it.
And are seeking their support from those countries. And yet we also acknowledge that to a certain extent, anti-Semitism is really an apocalyptic evil against God. You can't kill God. The nearest thing you can do is kill his people. And that's one of the reasons I oppose it quite categorically. It is evil, it's almost satanic. But I do not support it in any way whatsoever. I love the Jewish people all over the world. I love the Arab people all over the world. And people need to believe that you can actually do both. You don't have to be on one side or the other.
Andrew, there's a lot of church leaders and good guys, if you want, because isn't it terrible you have to say good guys and bad guys in the church? But I'm afraid it's got that way at the moment. But these are the good guys that you and I would regard as good guys and that stick to scriptural teaching. That's the definition, really. And they're saying that the God of Islam is not the same as the God of the Jews and the God of Christians, because simply put, they say from a theological point of view that Jesus is God. Part of the Godhead is God. And he's not regarded by Islam as God. He's regarded as a prophet, full stop. Therefore, it's not the same God.
And by the Jews as well. It's only the Messianic Jews who accept Jesus as God. So we find extremist positions there. But what we do believe is that God is a messianic figure as well. And I've talked regularly about the Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. In Judaism, there is the servant Messiah and the kingly Messiah. And in Islam, they believe that Jesus will return, but there'll be another great messianic figure known as the Mahdi. And in Iraq, when I was there, we had an army called JAM, Jaish al-Mahdi, the army of the Mahdi, who is this still hoped for messianic figure. There's no Mahdi in Christianity or in Judaism, but there is the Mashiach ben David.
He's not surprised there's conflict everywhere when it's this complicated among the religious leaders.
As William Temple said, the Archbishop of Canterbury in the last war, he said, when religion goes wrong, it goes very wrong. and religion has gone very wrong. And we believe it is only in the Messiah that it can go right.
For these people that are saying from, again, the individual religious point of view between the various protagonists, Islam is a religion of occupation, of conquest. Christianity is of peace. How true is that?
Well, but there are Muslims who will say Islam is the religion of peace, and it's supposed to be. Let's look at what evidence they show.
From the Christian perspective, by their fruits you shall know them.
And likewise from the Jewish perspective, and likewise from the Muslim perspective. Who is showing the fruits of peace? Not many.
Plenty there to think about, Andrew. As always, thank you so much.
We will come back to this one, no doubt.
I'm sure we will.